Hello viewers, once again I am in Lucy Brown's social media dungeon where I'm being asked questions that you have asked in an online survey by Lucy Brown, Vice President of Authenticity, yes, at James Gin, and they're being asked as usual by the disembodied voice of Gus. Gus, fire away.
The main event 8746. What is the best Top Gear or Grand Tour special idea that never made it into production?
I think it was one I had that was called the Grand Tour on the Moon. And obviously we weren't going to go to the moon because that would have been very, very expensive and very, very difficult. But I wanted it to be the final thing we ever did, which was spoof up a trip to the moon and do things like slow us down running around in spacesuits so that it looked like we were slightly weightless, and invent some mad car that we drove around somewhere that could look a bit like the moon, maybe Lanzarote or somewhere like that. Interestingly, nobody else liked that idea.
Mark Redmond 5795. What's your favourite band or musical artist?
Favourite band? Favourite band? I don't have a favourite band. I can't think of one. The other day, I went to see Paul McCartney in his final London. I'm going to say the other day, it was before Christmas. And in that moment, when he did Maybe I'm Amazed, which is a song with very deep meaning from my youth, I actually wept very slightly. And in that moment, Paul McCartney and Wings were the best band in the world ever. But today it might be the Dead Kennedys. I don't know. Or the James Taylor Quartet. I don't know.
At PT32, in your travel series, which has been your favourite side quest and why?
We did have a slight side quest in India to find the perfect biryani. Everybody on the crew, everybody from Britain and New Zealand, and obviously the Indian fixers who were working with us over there, we had a quest to find the perfect chicken biryani. And obviously there are a lot of them in a country as big as India. And as far as we are concerned, we did find it actually fairly early on, within the first week or so, in a very modest looking cafe type restaurant in Mumbai, quite near the cinema where we filmed. We went in there and the place only did biryani. It was like a biryani conveyor belt, and it was, I can still taste it. It was absolutely mind-blowingly brilliant. The use of it was a Hyderabadi dum biryani, which I always like ordering because I like saying it. And it was just spectacular. The slight oiliness on it, and the aromatic spices, and all that stuff that biryani is about. It was perfect. I'd love to be able to tell you the name of the place, but I've forgotten.
Just Komani. What's your it's another favourite, but it might be easier. What's your favourite cereal?
I really like sugar puffs, but I don't eat them very often. I don't even know if you can still get them. Are they called something else? They're called honey puffs now, aren't they? Because you're not allowed to say sugar. Woke nonsense. But probably cornflakes. In the same way that I quite like boring biscuits like Rich Tea and Digestive rather than chocolate hobnob or any of those things. Ginger nuts, they're great biscuits. I quite like the boring breakfast cereals. Cornflakes, Rice Krispies, the occasional Weetabix. I even had some shredded wheat the other day for the first time in a long time with some warm milk, and it was absolutely delicious. And that is just, I've been reliably informed, wheat shredded up.
Scott W 3258.
Hi Scott.
How much of Top Gear and Grand Tour specials was scripted and how much was unscripted?
That is a very dangerous question, Scott 2534. Because you're in danger of asking me to destroy the magic. But the truth is, we had treatments, but the words you ended up seeing on the screen just were plucked out of the air.
Shanty by 7047. What would you choose as the title of your memoir?
I've already chosen it actually, and someone has asked me to write it, but I don't really feel I should, and to be honest I can't quite be bothered. But it's called F*** Off Minstrel, which is something that a very old lady said to me once when I was performing as a minstrel.
Can you expand on that? Why were you calling a minstrel, and why did she say that?
Because I was a music student when I was young. I'm talking about, I was 15, maybe 16 years old. And I used to get work occasionally playing at things like those restoration banqueting halls were very fashionable at the time. And I knew someone whose father was involved in running one. So he occasionally would get me along there to join in with the musicians and, welcome the guests. It was like a sort of a musical waiting job, but it paid very well compared with other part-time jobs. And as a result of that, another friend of mine whose father ran a mobile catering business approached me and said, my dad's been asked to do an Elizabethan banquet for a wedding. Could you be a minstrel? And I said, well, I can't really play the guitar. I can only do a few chords, and I've never been a minstrel, but I could possibly have a go, because he was offering a lot of money, something like £25, and I'm talking about 1979 or 1980, no, it must have been 1979. So I agreed to do it, and I learned a lot of proper Elizabethan lute songs by John Dowland and Thomas Campion and so on, because I was quite a serious young man and I was interested in music. And I learned these, and I had a sort of minstrel-like outfit that I could wear. And I turned up to this wedding, which was in a proper big striped marquee, so it looked like something from the court of Henry VIII or Elizabeth I or whatever. And it was full of absolute drunken yobbos who weren't interested in the lute oeuvre of John Dowland. And every time I went around singing one of these songs that I'd learned so carefully, they just go, do you know YMCA? Or whatever. And I was distraught, and eventually I saw this very elderly lady sitting in the corner on her own, obviously not appreciating this sort of bawdy, drunken festival of nonsense that was going on. So I went over to her and sort of half knelt like a minstrel and sang her Fine Knacks for Ladies, Cheap Choice, Fair and True. And she listened very intensely as I sang it and nodded, and at the end she went, that were very nice. Now off, minstrel. So I went home.
College.
I was utterly crushed. Can you imagine? Sensitive young man, devoted to his early Elizabethan music.
College asks, where in the world have you felt most anonymous? Or have you made to feel like you don't need to be the guy from the telly?
France. Either nobody's heard of us or nobody was interested in us in France because they're too cool.
Nick 9876. What's the best place to move to in the UK?
Well, based on, say, things that are important to the UK, such as the quality of the local pub, I would say the village of Swallowcliffe in South Wiltshire, just off the A30 between Shaftesbury and Salisbury, where there is a pub called the Royal Oak, serving an excellent range of delicious home-cooked meals and a wonderful selection of beers, wines and spirits, including James Gin.
Devin Sherman 4666. Was there ever a car, either during Top Gear or the Grand Tour, that you ever regretted driving? And if so,
oh God,
why?
yes. Hundreds of things. My Salfa Romeo push me pull you car, which was a great idea but didn't quite work properly. I hated driving the Pagani Zonda because it was just too aggressive, and I had to drive it around the track and it was too snappy. What else did I hate driving? I didn't particularly like driving the Ariel Atom because I don't approve of cars with no windscreens. Likewise, the which is the Caterham Gus with the
R500.
R500, yes, which has no windscreen, does it? But why? Why build a car without a windscreen? No roof, yes, I get it. No doors even, I sort of get it. But no windscreen? Things like that, I hated.
Robbo Samsala.
I do like Caterhams though, actually. Otherwise, Caterhams are tremendous.
Robbo Samsala.
Gus had one, but he binned it.
It's true.
Quite badly.
Video with Ryan, brackets, Brian Reynolds, when?
I'm not sure if Brian Reynolds has even heard of me, to be honest, so I wouldn't hold your breath. Be nice though. I'm a bit of a fan of Brian Reynolds in reality. I just call him Brian to wind people up. I know he's called Ryan. He's called Ryan.
He has heard of you because he emailed us when we did that first video.
Did he?
Yeah. He sent it, or his people sent us a slightly curt email and sent us some free aviation.
I did get some free aviation, you're right. I've still got the bottle. In fact, what am I talking about? I've got a bottle of aviation gin signed by Brian Reynolds. So, I mean, somebody may have just put it in front of him and said, "Here, Brian, can you sign this for some bloke over, some limey over in Ingerland?" And Lucy Brown really wants that bottle, but I won't let her have it because it's still got gin in it, and Lucy doesn't like gin. I got an email from Brian Reynolds.
Yeah, and saying that because he was on Top Gear. He said
was.
he really
Of course he was, yes.
liked you. Not enough, however, to appear in a video contrasting his gin with ours.
Did you say he really liked me until I started being rude about his aviation gin? Ryan Reynolds' gin, Aviation, tastes like piss.
Extremo. How would you rate your odds of landing an A320 if you had to?
Extremely highly. I've got a mate who's an A320 captain and has explained it to me in great detail, and the A330, which I wrote about in my book, How to Land an Airbus A330 and Other Vital Skills for the Modern Man. Worth a read. Available on Amazon and from all good bookshops, and some shit ones.
The Shaboom. Was there ever a time in one of the Grand Tour Top Gear specials that you truly thought you wouldn't be able to reach the end?
Yes. Madagascar is the one that comes immediately to mind, because we knew it would be a bit rough, but it was so appalling, that road. I think it's actually the shortest distance we've travelled on a special, despite making a full-length film out of it, because it was, it was a crawl and occasionally a lift and a tow. It was just abysmal. So I honestly didn't think we'd get to the end of that one. When we set off on the very final one in our cars that we've always wanted, so me in the Stag, Hammond in the Capri, and Jeremy in the Lancia, looking at the map and knowing what I know about the roads and things, I thought we've brought, certainly two famously delicate cars on this, and I think there is a chance that we've screwed this up and we might not get to the end. And let's be honest, after about 15 miles, only the Stag was still working, and we had about 1,000 miles to go in total. But we did get to the end, and in fact, the Stag, Britain's least reliable car, as we all know, never went wrong. Never.
Dash 1141. How often do you think about the Roman Empire?
Well, I wouldn't say never, because I was actually, weirdly enough, talking to someone on the phone earlier on about the Roman Empire. But prior to that, I probably hadn't thought about the Roman Empire for at least a month. I definitely had a gin and tonic, as I'm having now, more recently than I'd thought about the Roman Empire.
I can't pronounce this, but I think it's Thickanimithais 7589.
Thickan in my thighs.
What kind of hair products do you use?
Soap. That's about it, really. Sorfiga, obviously, if it's really dirty.
Imdebeen. Who would win a race between a Peregrine Falcon and a Cessna 172?
That is actually quite an interesting question, because over a long distance and in level flight, the Cessna 172. In a dive, though, I think the Peregrine Falcon, I'm going to look up its... I seem to remember I know a bit of this from my research into the speed of birds. Yes, up to 242 miles an hour in a dead head-down dive, which the Cessna 172 wouldn't be able to do. It wouldn't be able to do that. It's way beyond its VNE, velocity never exceed. It would break up at that speed, and you wouldn't be able to get it to go down vertically anyway, because it would probably pull itself out. So the answer is the Peregrine Falcon in a dive.
Jim Appleby, what's the story behind your gin? Were you actually instrumental in crafting it, or is it just a rebrand of something else?
How dare you? What was his name?
Jim Appleby.
Jim Appleby. Thank you for using your actual name. Credit to you for that. But no, it's not one of those things where someone has approached me and said, "Do you mind putting your name on our gin?" This is a creation between me with my mad idea. This is in fact Asian Parsnip, isn't it? The original one. Have I still got that lined up, Lucy, or are you going to have a big attack of... No. That was a joint effort really between me and Hugh the distiller. It was sort of my idea. Hugh made it live, and we did that as an experiment really, to make a YouTube film, because I thought it would be fun to make a gin. And now look where we are.
Where are we?
That's a very good... I was just thinking as I said that, I hope nobody says, "Where are we?" And then Gus did, because we are at a point where what started off as a hobby or maybe at best a cottage industry is on the verge of turning into something quite serious and businesslike and grown up. We have employed people full-time on salaries. Well, that was the last question for this session, viewers. I hope you found that interesting. It's difficult to imagine that you did, but thank you for watching. Don't like, don't comment, definitely don't subscribe.